funding that. So the portion of that for the operating budget is $6,300 that we'll expect will offset the $20,000 shell purchase. So overall, you'll notice on the line it says total change. It's an adjustment to the tax levy of $139,550, and that's a reduction since we brought it the first time. And so bringing the overall tax levy to $5,455,950, which is a 4.12% increase from 2024, or $216,000. So if there's any questions on that information, I can take them now.
Deputy Mayor, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good right now, thank you.
Councilor Windsor?
Thank you, Hunter. Amanda, through the chair. I'm looking at the street improvement program, and that is going to be funded through a reserve that was reserved under the surplus from 2024 because that program hadn't been executed in 2024. So I'm wondering, like, essentially this is a wash. It's coming out of reserve, so it's really not affecting the operating budget. So I'm not clear as to why we don't have that as shown as a transfer as well, so it would be a wash and it wouldn't be appear as part of the expense.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Thank you. That's a great question. I realized when I was saying that out loud, I missed the $10,000 transfer in, actually. And further to that, we did not discuss that on the year-end allocation either. So that was I missed that one. So what that would actually do is reduce this by 10,000 should council go ahead with reserving that additional 10,000.
I think we had a motion to reserve it. So
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So you're saying that,
So actually your bottom line would be a difference of 206,000, not 216,000.
and you said you could do that right in
Yes.
your are, yeah.
Which I'd have to share, but so that brings you to 3.93% over last year's budget.
So,
Go ahead. Okay, follow.
thank you, Mayor. So essentially, we just disregard that.
Well-
I mean, it's there, and it will be in the budget, but it'll be a revenue as well, a transfer of the reserve, so it'll be a wash as far as our operating, the revenue from tax is concerned.
Correct, yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I'll add 10,000 to the street light improvement program revenue line.
Thank you.
Or is that it?
That's the only one I had on this
Okay.
part, yeah. Once
Some
we
more?
get- and more.
Thank you. On this, maybe just remind me, being that it's 3.93%, how much our equalized assessment went up this year, percentage-wise?
Through the chair. I don't have that off the top of my head, but if you give me a few seconds, I'll pull it up. Could I just ask for clarification? Are you looking overall?
I am, because I'm looking at, you said 3.93% over last year, And I'm thinking that our equalized assessment has risen by at least that amount.
Well, resident, I don't have the average, but residential is up by 7.51%
That's it.
and non-residential 9.08%.
Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Baswick? And I just, the question about, we always, I don't like to see 35,000 taken out of a budget, but the next council will have to find a way to get it back in. And that's the council. And I know whenever we do these things at budget meetings, we ask them to come back and see what the impact they would make, and we can always change them, and even the other items coming back tonight are going to make a difference, or could make a difference. But the 35,000 in salaries and wages, and I mean, maybe the council of the day, the next term would keep that 35,000 out. I don't know, but I know in a new term, and all the stuff that goes on in a year, in a new term, generally doesn't bring expenses down. So I wonder if we should just maybe, you had some responses for me about this, Amanda, so we take 35,000 out of that, then the next budget has to find a way to put it back in. And I'm wondering if maybe we just put that to 20,000. We take out over 15, something that'll be easier for the budget to find. And I know it's not a great amount, which is nice, but go ahead and if you have an answer to that.
Sure. Well, being that it is an election year, we do have some costs that occur kind of once every 4 years. And so in council's budget is 11,000 for 7 new laptops. That'll be something that doesn't need to occur the following year in 2026. And then the election costs themselves, we have about 18,000 in the budget for this year, so you won't see that in 2026 either. So there's 29,000 that would kind of, in a way, could offset that when these wages need to be reinstated for 2026. It's not the full amount, but it is a large portion of it.
It is, and that would leave 6,000 to find, which, I mean, it's not a big amount, and I don't know that we put that in there to take 6,000 out of that budget, because it's often under budget too. But that's a good answer, I appreciate that, because I just don't want to see the next council with all the new training and workshops and, even the Munis 101, the AOP courses, might not be possible if they don't have the funds. So I do appreciate that response, and I would leave that there. And I think,
Okay.
what? Did you want to say something, Councillor Winston? You surprised me.
Sorry, thank you, Mayor. This was my motion that I had put in there, and so yes, I would like to say something about it, because I too didn't want to have a discrepancy between this council's budget and not carry it forward to next year, because then they'd have to make that up. But since, following Amanda's explanation, that makes sense, so really they're only going to have to find essentially $6,000 if we do this 35,000 cut at this point in time. We could also just drop it down to the 29,000 for the $6,000 difference. I'm not sure it makes a lot of difference either way. So thank you for that.
And I think, I like too, Amanda, I appreciate that Parks position, and I've always supported planning, having a plan for addition of positions, and I think that worked really well with the fire chief that was brought back this year after the plan last year for it. So I do appreciate that, and that certainly helped find some money for the budget. So we're at 3.89 right now, you said?
3.93%.
With that $10,000 change. Okay. All right, no other,
Can we make a motion?
sure.
I move that council accept the amended draft 2025 operating budget as information.
All right. Any other comments, Deputy Mayor?
No, I'm good, no.
And just for everybody that I haven't told and that isn't in the room, Councillor Deputy Mayor Noel is virtual with us up on the screen. Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. It was also my motion to bring back the 4 and 3 in terms of COLA.
That's coming up though.
And so we're not going to discuss that.
Well, it's coming
at this
up.
point?
Page 6, item,
Okay, thank you.
whatever item that is. 3.4.
It's going to have an impact on this.
Yes, it will. Okay. Councillor Moore? Any other comments?
No, thank you.
Councillor Vaswick? I'll call the vote then to accept the amended 2025 operating budget as information. All in favor? That's carried. We have item 3.1. Well, you went to we have 3.1.1 because you were doing 3.1 as a whole. Yes, so we are at 3.1.1 now. Resolution 68224, the ECDEV budget. But that's included in there. Okay, I just don't have these pages. So we've discussed those things. Thank you very much. Those are just resolutions listed below there. Thank you. Okay, so we go to item 3.2, the condenser failure projected impact on 2025 budget. Amanda, did you want to speak to that?
Sure, thank you. So there was a motion on January 6th at the special council meeting to bring back the adjustment to the operation costs and revenues of the facilities affected by the condenser unit failure to the next budget meeting. Since that date, we did have, at that time we were expecting to have ICE back in February and March. Of course, that did not happen, unfortunately. And so now we are seeing basically 3 months of lost revenue at the arena and the curling rink, as well as some savings in the expenditures. So as far as revenues go at the arena, that's the main ice surface rentals as well as the leisure ice surface. And then in the curling rink, that's January, February, March revenue on the surface there. We also did have some savings related to staffing as our seasonal positions are not currently fulfilled. And so there's an adjustment or savings there for the budget purposes. Also, both of those facilities use quite a bit of water, so I'm projecting that there's a savings of about $6,000 for the curling rink, $5,000 for the arena in water usage. And electricity, I've budgeted a savings of $5,000 and $5,000 at each facility, $5,000 for a total of $10,000. Granted, that's a really hard one to estimate. I've looked at kind of what we use in the facility last year, but that's based on a month that was in operations. We don't even have our bill for the January timeframe yet for 2025 for me to be able to look at and kind of guess what we'd be spending in electricity versus what we've saved from the ice plant being off. So I have estimated, I'm assuming pretty low conservatively. Yeah, so overall though, that would be an adjustment to revenues of about $98,000 lost revenue, $44,000 reduction in expenditures for a net impact of $54,000. As you know, we've also been provided with a donation of $25,000 for the arena, which may be used to offset some of that lost revenue. And with all of that being said, these expenditures that we're estimating may be, we likely will see more of a savings than that. It's just hard to estimate. So I will turn that back over to you, Mayor, to see if there's any questions that I can answer.
All right, thanks for that, Amanda. Deputy Mayor, any questions about the condensed unit failure budget impact?
So on top of the budget that we've taken as information, you're estimating this is going to add roughly $54,000 to that figure?
Through the chair?
Yes, through the chair.
Sorry, just to provide a response, yes, that would impact that budget by $54,000 if that's what if council chooses to adjust the budget for that. There's things that happen all the time. At some point you have to set your budget and then kind of live with what actually occurs during the year. So if council could decide not to adjust the budgets, and administration would do their best to increase the amount of revenues that we're collecting by, in this time of not having ice and trying to look for other cost savings for the year. And then if there is a deficit in the arena budget and curling budget at the end of 2025, bring that to council to address at that time, I suppose. With something like the strategic initiatives reserve, or if there's a annual surplus, looking at using that or something like to that extent. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it does, thank you.
So like the 3.93% includes the budget as it was presented on October 30th?
Yes, that's correct. So it includes revenues like we were operating as normal. This additional 98,000 lost revenues is not in the budget. And it's not it wasn't in 3.1 either.
Thank you. Councilor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I kind of equate this back to the council salaries and wages and looking at that and fabricating a budget that's not going to necessarily be realistic for the reflection on it, or reflect on for 2026, and the next council is going to have to deal with that. So if we do just determine that we're not going to adjust the budget, then there's lots of options for us to look at for funding that in the event that we end up with a deficit at the end of the year. And I just want to clarify to make sure I have that right. And that is that we could use the surplus, we could allocate some of the surplus if there is a surplus. We could allocate some reserve to it from the contingency reserve. Or if there is isn't a deficit in the arena curling rink budgets, then it's taken care of automatically. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. There's also, we also don't know, we've looked at insurance to cover the breakdown of equipment, so we don't know if the insurance will cover it either. So that's why I hesitate to put it in the budget, because there might then be quite a large surplus at the end of the year if insurance proceeds cover it.
Thank you.
Councilor Belzic, do you have any questions?
More of a comment, I guess. At the Alberta Municipalities meeting, I had the opportunity to speak with a group that is government sponsored in a sense. And I passed that information on to our CAO Amanda so that she can check it out. Apparently there are substantial grants available that for repair and to cover the various things we experienced with our filling rate and rate. So I gave Amanda that information, and she has used these people before, so she's familiar with them. And it's just a matter of applying for dollars in order to cover any expenses we have in recovering our arena. So I'm sure that that will be looked after. Basically, that's my comment on that.
Thank you. Councillor Moore?
I appreciate what everybody has been saying. It doesn't pay, if we had passed it back in December, we'd have a budget in place and we'd still have to do adjustments and we still wouldn't know. So I appreciate that everybody's kind of being flexible and not trying to pinpoint the exact amount because it could be higher, it could be lower. So I appreciate that. And did you want to sum up or could I make a motion?
Yeah, I always go around the table. Yeah.
Did you?
So I agree too that we just leave the budget be where it was. So I appreciate all the comments for that and all the answers that support that or convince me that that's a good decision. To try to find it at the end of the year again or for next budget. It just doesn't make sense. So yes, if someone would like to make the motion, am I going to make all the motions or should I share them? Go ahead though on this
I
one.
don't care.
No,
I don't care.
you just said, go ahead. You just go ahead and make this
I move
3.2.
I move that council approve the condenser unit failure budget impact as information.
Can that be repeated? I didn't hear that.
Sorry. I move that council approve the condenser unit failure budget impact as information.
Should we accept it?
It
As
says approve.
information? I know, but maybe we should accept it as information. It's your motion. That would be an amendment, so you can leave it as it is, or...
I'll leave it. I don't think it matters.
Okay. All right, any last comments? I will call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. All right. We have item 3.3, salaries and benefits, year-over-year budget changes. Amanda? Okay.
Thank you. So in this item, we were asked to bring back basically a more detailed summary of the changes from wages, salaries, wages, and benefits budget line in 2024 compared to 2025. So on page 5 of the agenda, you can see that a summary there. So we start with the 2024 value of $4,700,898, and the increase overall was $333,638. Keep in mind this is based on the first draft of the budget back from November, so it hasn't been adjusted for the parks position that was presented tonight. So changes related to CPP, EI, WCB, LAPP, which is our pension plan, and employee benefits are in the top portion. Those are things that are harder to control. They're usually legislated or contracted costs. And then, so the impacts from organizational changes, I'll just outline those. So the parks, at the time, this was to add the parks position into the budget, which was offset by the reduction of like some part-time employees doing the work. So that was a net impact of 41,347. The legislative services / fire chief, those are grouped together because of the impact of hiring the fire chief, and obviously there was a retirement in legislative services that offset some of the position's functions. And that was an impact of $10,457. Keep in mind, these are netted, like certain positions netted together. The arena impact is we did go from 4 full-time arena workers to 3. Okay, so 4 full-time and 1 seasonal to 3 full-time and 2 seasonal. So that was a reduction of $18,815. And then corporate services, the addition of $21,450. And that is to actually increase the hours in corporate services, mainly at the main desk, and as part of that, to get our office open Fridays at lunch. Wage adjustments are for things like, those were adjustments that occurred in the previous year that would impact, which was adjustments made to reflect this as best as possible, the 60th percentile, which was a to get staff to the 60th percentile. So that was the impact of those wage adjustments from 2024. And then COLA at a rate of 5% for all positions amounts to about $166,000. And then you can see that total change was $333,638, which brought us to our 2025 budget of $5,034,536. Are there any questions?
I'm sure there are. Deputy Mayor, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so following this on a very small screen, all of the adjustments, I see them here. The COLA at a rate of 5%, is that in the original budget number that you presented us up top there at the 3.93, I think, percent?
Correct, that is.
Thank you.
Mr. Brunswick, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mayor. I just was wondering if pretty well all staff are now up to the 60 percentile that we were looking for?
So I wouldn't be able to say for certain. That is why I proposed a compensation review. So bringing in and doing a compensation review would be able to look at that and get the correct information to determine if they are at the 60th percentile.
Is that it? Councilor Moore?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. I heard you say that the office is open Friday?
It is coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. It's made my night. Well, the budget did, but. And then the $70,000 adjustment to parks is going to bring that number of 638 down.
305.
Yes. Yes. So it'll bring it down by 70,000.
But it'll bring it totally down by 70?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was thinking that 41, 347 and 70 would be the difference.
It'll bring the total salaries and wages down by 70.
Yeah, so,
So a portion of that is in that parks line, but also there's a CPP impact, EI, WCB.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is that, just with your calculator?
The total.
I know you have a calculator handy there. I'm just gonna write it down.
So for the total wages budget would become 4,964,536.
Okay.
And so the increase from the prior year would be 263,638.
Okay. Thanks for that. And thank you for this document. I appreciate the question being answered and thoroughly, and something we all can understand with the explanation about the arena too. So that was a good shift, as long as it's operational with those people. Okay, so any other questions on wages or the salaries and benefits year-over-year budget changes? Councilor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'm intrigued about the net for the legislative services and the fire chief. And I think that if I recall correctly, that the fire chief was going to take on some other responsibilities from some other departments as well. And I think it's going to affect more than just legislative services, I guess what I'm suggesting, because of the responsibility that the fire chief is going to take on. And so I'm wondering if that's a net across all departments that the fire chief is going to be taking on responsibilities, or if that is just the legislative services section.
Okay, thanks for the question. So the titles of the lines was kind of my way of trying to like group them together. It was less about budget specific and more about the function or the position that had changed. So yes, there will be an impact, like the fire chief position. They are overseeing municipal enforcement, and so the legislative services manager had overseen that as well. So those two, the cost of the new manager and the previous manager would kind of net out there. But within legislative services, we did have other changes that weren't just related to one position.
Emergency response, emergency.
So everything related to the duties of the fire chief are represented there. There's no other costs. This really brings down the impact from every organizational change, just netted into that one line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I apologize, I changed the order, so I got you there. Usually you were going second. I see Deputy Mayor has his hand up too, so go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair, Amanda, so with the reductions in the park position, the 3.93 then would be reduced by an additional 70,000. That percentage would come down.
That's not quite. So the 70,000 is already in that 3.93%. I just didn't show it on this page because of the timing of the motion. So I could tie it into the numbers that were presented in the motion, but the 70 is already in the 3.93%.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions about the salaries and wages year-over-year budget change? Go ahead, Councillor Bazick.
I would move to accept the salaries and benefits report detailing the year-over-year budget changes as information.
Okay, I will call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. So I just want to say, for those live streaming, Acting CEO Amanda Riley is the one you hear. You can see her on your screen, answering questions. Craig Fox, our Director of Engineering and Infrastructure, is to her right, and our Economic Development Officer is Alexa Ross is here as well. So those are the people that you might hear on the screen if you can't see them. So I'm going to try to make a habit of doing that this much later. I'm going to do it halfway through the agenda every time so that it's consistent. All right, so we have item 3.4, cost of living adjustment information. Go ahead, Amanda.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for the introduction. I should get in that habit myself. The council made a motion to bring back options for cost of living allowance of 5 and 3% and 4 and 3%. So those are presented here. If you look at option 1, that would be a 5% and 3% scenario, and which should council go with that, would be a reduction of about $25,000 to the budget. And the COLA option 2 is for 4% and 3% COLA for staff and management, and that would be about a $50,000 reduction to the budget. And so neither of these are presented in your 3.93%. If you were to adjust COLA by any amount, it would further reduce that. If you were to adjust COLA, if you were to reduce COLA, it would further reduce the budget, budgeted amount.
All right, thanks for those numbers. I am going to go around the table, and because there's 3 options here, I'm going to just get everybody's input. There 5% exists at this point in the budget, and that was $166,212. The 5 and 3, so I'm going to ask if you would support the 5%, the 5 and 3%, or the 4 and 3%. And then I guess, I don't know, Amanda, if you can you find the percentages right now?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that, and then that just helps. So with the option 1, if that were added into, adjusted on there, what would that bring the percentage to?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, okay, sorry, I
So you
spoke
can
too
do that.
soon. I could estimate it, however, it's a little more difficult because some of the wages, this is wages across the municipality, some of them are in departments that break even. So for example, if it impacts somebody who works for the water department, so although it's a $25,000 difference overall, it's not going to impact taxes by $25,000. But we can estimate about, I would say about like 85% of that for sure would be appropriate. But if you wanted the exact impact,
I guess I was looking at, if you're at 3.93%, if you take away 24,000, what percent is that then?
yeah.
But that's good, that's.
I could do that. It's just that this 25,000 is for staff in the whole organization. So some of our like water, wastewater budget is covered by user fees.
Right.
So reducing those
Just
budgets
break even, yeah.
isn't gonna impact the tax levy. But yeah, I even probably 90% of that is accurate. But
Well, let's go, I mean, if it makes a difference and there's a discrepancy here in support, then maybe we'll look at what that is.
Okay.
So we have 5% in the books already, 166,000 and change. 5 and 3% would reduce our revenue from taxes by 24,643, not the water wastewater though. So I understand what you're saying. And the COLA of 4 and 3 is about 50,000 from the revenue from tax with the water wastewater and mine being adjusting that a bit. So Deputy Mayor, what would you support of those three? I think that's the easiest way to approach this conversation.
The 5%?
Okay. Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I think it's more than just a question of which one I support, because I think there's an explanation behind it, and I'd like to give that, and that is that on page 5, we talked about the wage adjustment of 28,000, and that was to bring our percentile or our comparison in the industry to 60%, which is where we want to be. And given assuming that is indeed the case, then I don't think that we need to give a 5%. I would support the 4 and 3.
Okay. Councillor Bowser?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in for 5%.
Okay. Councillor Moore?
5%.
Okay. And I was the one that asked for 4% to get brought back for council to consider, so I would find it hard to argue to get it lower since I didn't start at a lower number. And that would be unfair that Amanda's done this work and her administrative team's done the work, because we believe, and you know, when we settle this tonight, if that's the number that we asked to come back March 26th, if we see, and we always ask for the chart on all the tax impact on our homes and on our ratepayers and how much that will be going up or down. We always look at that when we approve the budget at the next meeting, if that's the case. So I am fine with supporting it as it is, already in the budget, and I'm happy to hear that people have been brought up to 60%, and you said that maybe that isn't the case 100%. It's best because you haven't done that compensation review. And we have a 3.93% right now, so like I said, I find it difficult to dispute that I asked for that to come in at 4 or less and did. So I'm fine. I see consensus, or 4 members are fine with 5%, and so we can accept budget implications of various cost of living allowance options as information. And I think what's going to happen with this compensation review is everybody's going to get a really good picture for 2026 budget as to where everything really is at. So we'll all look forward to that. So motion on that. Deputy Mayor, do you want to make that?
No, I don't have it here, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Councillor Bowser?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to accept the budget implication of various cost of living allowance options as information.
All right. I'll call the vote then. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we have, it wouldn't be right if we didn't finish this at the end of the term. The council, well, 6 months or 7 months away from the end of the term. Council Chambers sound system. It just seems only right. We started with it 7 years ago. So, Amanda, do you want to go ahead and speak to that?
Sure. So I have to say that I've only recently kind of come up to speed on this project, and it may not be exactly where you're expecting it to be. However, we have been able to, well, first of all, starting with the internet connection in council chambers, because a lot of our systems, the live stream, Zooming people in, they all rely on the connection. So we are looking at definitely the Wi-Fi network connection as part of our network upgrade project that council's approved as part of the capital plan project budget. And so However, with that being said, we've already noticed kind of some improvements on that front. In an effort to improve the connection of sound, we are recommending that 2 additional microphones be purchased. As you can see, we have taken some from your tables at this time to just improve the number of spots throughout chambers that has them, so you can hear people like our recording officer speak, and also have an additional one for our table, so you can hear the administrative responses better. But the cost of that we're expecting will be covered in the 2025 supplies budget, so we can just go ahead with that without any further council approval. And then regarding electronic participation, we do now have to offer a virtual means of attending the meeting when there's a public hearing, and we are doing that through using Zoom meeting, and sort of similar to how Deputy Mayor Engel is joining tonight, where he, I believe, is communicating better than in the past, and also he's also looking at you with this camera set up here, so he can see and interact with you better, and that is our hope for public hearing participants as well. So that's kind of where we're at with it. I know it's not a sound system enhancement type project, but if you want us to enhance it more and do a kind of a full-scale project, I guess I would just ask you to direct us in that way. So really, I'm kind of asking for further direction. Would you like to see more than we're doing right now? Or is what we're doing, have the improvements we made, even though they may have been kind of small, have they been working?
Councillor Brunswick, do you want to respond to that first?
Yes, I appreciate that we're going in this direction. For a long time, I've been trying to get this on the budget and on council's mind. It's not only the sound, it's all, and 2 microphones may not be quite enough, I'm not sure. But it may be. It's the quality of the system, the streaming of the information. Quite often it goes sideways and people they just turn off because they don't get it, or the sound's bad, and the video is not what it could be. We could have a major change in the actual video that people are watching. So I would hope that we might consider some type of video enhancement as well. The Wi-Fi bandwidth is going to make a big difference. That's very important. So, and also make our lovely operator give her a little more latitude in actually functioning in the audio-visual part of our meetings. So I don't expect a total overhaul. I mean, the last quote I had when I was talking to people was for something in the area of 16 new microphones with extended arms. That's the important thing because we're always humped over looking at it, right? So with lengthy mic booms, and I think it was under $20,000. So that part of it's not that expensive in the scheme of things. The video part is a little more expensive. I'm not sure what that is. I didn't focus on that. I was focusing on the sound. But even if we had the sound part beefed up where it was sweet, then it would be a big bonus. But I think we should look at both the video and the audio in this, and make sure we have, that we're not shortchanging ourselves, with all due respect, instead of getting 2 microphones, just count them up and make sure we have 14 or whatever we might require. And video-wise, getting the right the quote on the proper equipment, whether it's automatic zooming or whatever it does, I don't know. But I might be able to bring some of that back at the next, from the next conference, we'll see. That's my comment.
Thank you. Councillor Moore?
I appreciate that there's improvements to the internet on Wi-Fi and the capital plan, because I think that's been a failure a lot of times, and that's certainly nobody's fault. That improvement's good. I like the incremental changes. When we were looking at the whole video thing, it was really expensive, and that's why we didn't move forward with it at the time. So I appreciate all these little changes, and if there was going to be a sweeping change, I would think it should be by another council, being that we don't have that much longer in this term. So, and the Zoom option for public hearing, if it works like it is with Councillor Engel right now, that is an improvement over the way we've had it in the past, so I appreciate that too. I'm definitely in favor of moving forward. Thank you.
Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I've never really been on the other end where Councillor Engel is right now, or Deputy Mayor Engel is right now, so I can't comment from that side of it, and I would depend on him to give us his evaluation of where he is right now. I know that going in and listening to recordings and looking back at recordings, there are some times when it is a little bit more difficult to understand and you have to crank the volume up on the computer, but that's got more to do with us than it has with the system. And I appreciate that you're looking at incremental changes and moving forward with some things that maybe are going to improve it for the experience of the people at home or joining virtually. I'm quite happy leaving it at that and exploring those and see how those turn out. And then if there needs to be adjustments after that, then I think that would be up to council to look at that at that time, whether it's this council or the next council.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so recording live, it's been a while since I have zoomed into a council meeting, and this has been a pleasant experience actually. The picture quality is more than adequate. I can see you all, not quite like when I'm there live, but the sound quality is excellent. And considering that I'm running through a hotel Wi-Fi, I don't even know how stable that signal is. So this is the best it's ever been for me. So if they've made some incremental improvements over the last couple of weeks, I would say that it's a vast improvement.
Okay. You just went through the whole budget, so whatever it is, I have no appetite to add it to the budget, so that would be why I'm happy with what the administrative team is doing. And because, like I said, there's not a budget line for it, so I would support that administration moving forward with some improvements and leave it at that, accept as information. Would you like to make that motion, Councillor Bassick?
Just one little comment. You'll notice with the sound coming over our speakers from Zoom, if there's an issue with that, I'd like to see that somehow integrated into the stream directly, so that they're not hearing the echo in the room or anything from his report. So that way, whatever we're hearing, they're hearing directly instead of secondary audio from the room. Because it does make it a little difficult, I believe, on the other end. Anyway, I'll make a motion if you like. I move to accept the council chamber sound system enhancements as information.
Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. And we have item 3.6 line by line. Amanda, any comments on that?
Not really, no, we've just presented basically this was to get updated actual results in front of you, and the budget itself had stayed the same. at this time. So if you, once the final budget's approved, we'll go and update those numbers in the budget column.
Thank you. Any comments, Councilor Moore?
No, I appreciate it. It's been, I'm sure, a challenge.
Councilor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. No direct comment. I just appreciate that the adjustments have been made, and the actual numbers, I really appreciate that.
Deputy Mayor?
I agree with my two colleagues, I like the layout, and I appreciate the work that's gone into it.
Councilor Paswick?
Thank you, Mayor. As always, I appreciate the effort. It's a big job, and it shows in the result, and that's special. Thank you.
I want to know how hard the line by line is to generate. These cents.
Getting the numbers in.
Is it 10 minutes or 3? I don't mean that. I don't mean the input of numbers. I mean updating it to be the current, because you just did the fourth quarter is what I mean. So is it in sync with that?
Well, yeah, so the report itself is created already in our system. So it's a push of a button. But getting the actuals prepared for year end is a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt that. I'm just saying that the fourth quarter makes it easier, and all that work that you've done already helps you to generate this line by line. I wonder if Amanda Council, that I kind of missed the part of the $25,000 donation back when, and we haven't announced that, we haven't made it official because of the company needs to be involved in that, of course, but is there a motion that you need to, or should we wait for the press release or the actual, because it's been mentioned here a few times, after the press release or after the announcement, we ask that come back to council at that point
Yeah.
as to where to allocate it and how to allocate or what happens with it.
Yeah, I think I would recommend that you wait for the announcement and the press release, and we will then bring it back to council it'll be a big deal, and then we can celebrate it, and even council might have other ideas of how to where to commit that money. If it's just the general costs of lost revenues that we've had, or if it's something else that might be more meaningful to our user groups, then you can decide that too.
Oh, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Well, I was just going to try and make a motion for you.
Go ahead.
I move the council accept the updated departmental line by line as information.
Amanda, you didn't take that.
No,
sound.
I didn't.
Okay, just because of meeting sometimes things are easy to generate. It's easier than if the fourth quarter's there, so thanks for that. And we have a motion to accept the line by line. Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. And Councilor Windsor, I'll have you adjourn this since you've been silent on motions.
I'd be happy to adjourn the meeting at 7:05.
Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried.